Today, I'll show you how you can check for compatibility with .NET Standard. Hello friends of .NET, I'm Imo Landworth and you can find me on Twitter at TerraJobs. In this episode, I'm showing you how you can check your source code or your binaries for compatibility with .NET Standard. So in my last episode, I showed you how you can reuse an existing .NET Framework binary from a library targeting .NET Standard. But I also told you that we can't really change physics, so this will only work if the .NET Framework binary isn't using APIs that aren't available in .NET Standard. So for example, if that uses WPF or WinForms, you're still out of luck, this is not going to work. So many of you asked the question of, okay, how would I know whether the binary will work with .NET Standard or will not work with .NET Standard? And today I'll show you a tool that is really available in two flavors. There's a command line version of the tool, which is awesome for automation and for large-scale projects. And the second one is a source-based tool, which is basically just a plugin to VS where you can do the same thing. So let's get started. So the first way you would download the tool is you would just search for the tool using your favorite search engine. And it's actually on GitHub, which is kind of convenient. So if you don't like the tool, feel free to submit a PR. And there's a downloads tab where you can just grab the command line tool as a zip file. You would just put it somewhere of your choosing, and here it is. That's the command line tool. So let's open up a command line prompt, and let's go to the downloads folder where I've already downloaded the library I showed you last time, which is Power Collections. So now let's say we want to know whether Power Collections is compatible with .NET Standard. So what you would do is you would just start the command line tool. You would supply the analyze command. Analyze, it's quite hard to type apparently. Specify -f for the file, and you say, in our case, that's powercollections.dll, and you can just hit enter. And what this will do, it will basically just select a certain set of targets as the default. So the nice thing is API port isn't really restricted to just analyzing compatibility for .NET Standard. It can really do it for any .NET platform. So if you just want to port between, let's say, .NET Framework and .NET Core, you can also use API port. Or if you want to move from, let's say, Mono to .NET Framework or from .NET Framework to Mono, you can also use the tool. So if we just open up the file I just wrote, it's basically just an Excel spreadsheet. You can also use another option to just write an HTML file. But I really love Excel because it's quite easy to group and do large-scale analysis with that. So what this does is basically just gives you a high-level overview and says this, for every given assembly that you specified, it will give you a score that is basically ranging from 0% compatibility to 100% compatibility. In our case, unsurprisingly, because it's a .NET Framework binary, it's 100% compatible with .NET Framework, and it's 100% compatible with .NET Standard. All right, we already knew that. But the question really is, what happens if we use an older version of .NET Standard? How would that work? Because by default, it just picked the latest version of .NET Framework and .NET Standard. And you can do that by using the list targets option, and it shows you essentially all the versions that are available. So for example, it shows you here what the defaults are. That's the one with the asterisks. And so let's say we want to target .NET Standard 1.6. How much work would that be? Well, let's just use the last command again. But now we specify -t for targets, and we say .NET Standard version equals 1.6. We hit enter again, and now it writes another file, and let's open that one. And now we can see that with .NET Standard, we are only, with .NET Standard 1.6, we're only compatible 92.56%. And it's great, but what is actually missing? And that's where the second tab kicks in. It shows you basically, for every given assembly you provided, what APIs are you using that are not supported. So for example, it says, oh, you're using iClonable, which is only supported in 2.0. So what's the recommended change? And the answer is just remove it. Or let's say the serialization, well, you can either remove serialization or replace it with something else. All right, so that's really convenient if what you're doing is analyzing binaries. And binaries are sometimes really useful because if you have a large application, you may not have a single VS solution. But let's say you already made the decision you want to port that. In that case, you really want something that's a bit more integrated. So let's say I look at the source code of Power Collections. You can just go to the extensions here and install the .NET Portability Analyzer, which is the same tool as API Port. So I've already done that, but you would just click install and then you have it. As soon as you have it installed, you have another command here, which is analyze assembly portability. And if you just click that, you can already see in the output window, it basically just runs the command line tool. It again creates an API port analysis report, and you can open that, and it will show you the same information we already looked at. And let's actually go here first, Portability Analyzer settings. That basically controls what you would normally pass on the command line. So again, it has the same defaults. So we can just say, no, actually show me what would happen if I would like to target .NET Standard 1.6. And so first of all, you have the report again that you can look at. But more importantly, in the arrow list, you actually see basically the location in the source file where you're using APIs that aren't supported. So for example, let's say iClonable. So here you cast to iClonable, and you can extend this and get the same information that the spreadsheet had. You can see, all right, system iClonable clone is not supported in standard 1.6, suggestion remove usage. And yeah, that's basically what you have to do. And then you just walk the list, and then you address all of those issues, and at some point the list will be 0, at which point your binary will be compatible with whatever target you selected. And lastly, I'd like to show you a community project which is kind of cool. It's called iCanHas.NET Core. And basically what it does is it allows you to either scan a given NuGet package or a GitHub repository to see whether it's compatible with .NET Core. So that's not really for .NET Standard, but it's spiritually very similar to that whole thing. And so what you can do here is if you click on demo, you can kind of see how that works. So here what it does, it basically shows you a project called Serilog. And what you can see here is basically the dependency graph of the project Serilog, meaning what other projects or NuGet packages it depends on. And then it color codes them. And as you can see, your project, that's basically the project itself. And then you can see in green all the components that are supported. So this is available for .NET Core, this is available for .NET Core, this one is. And then there are a few ones like, okay, this one is not supported, which is our internal super tools lib. Clearly that name is funny. Then there is Microsoft Web XDTT, which is unsupported. And then there's one where it says there's a known replacement available. And when you just look at the detailed results here, you can see that here it breaks it down by the things you're depending on. And then it says known replacements, Microsoft Net HTTP. This package backport HTTP client to pre.NET 4.5 platforms. So on .NET Core, you no longer need that package, so there's nothing you have to do. And then these are the ones where there just isn't a version available for .NET Core yet. So it's kind of cool, and you should give the project a try, especially when you want to port to .NET Core. This one really helps you to jumpstart this whole effort. All right, this is all I have today. I hope you found that useful. If so, give it a like. And more importantly, check out the other videos in the same series on .NET Standard. See you later.